G'day, it's fugitive Australian journalist Shane Dowling from the website Kangaroo Court of Australia. Now I want to talk to you about Avi Yemini and a prima facie case against him for breaching the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme, which is punishable by up to 5 years jail. Predominantly want to look at it from a viewpoint of Avi Yemini suing PR Guy 17 for defamation. Firstly, for calling him a criminal, or alleged to have called him a criminal, and secondly, calling him a threat to national security. Now, as far as the criminal allegation is concerned, I dealt with that in an article on the 12th of June 2022 on my website, Kangaroo Court of Australia, and also in a video I just published yesterday, or today actually. That deals with the criminal allegation, but this video is going to deal with the alleged threat to national security. Avi Yemini claims he was defamed when PR Guy 17 accused him of being a threat to national security. Well, there's probably two major things there. First is Avi Yemini's breach of the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme, the Australian Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme, which is punishable by up to 5 years jail. The prima facie case there, and we'll look at that in a second. And also Avi Yemini's very close relationship with Aussie Cossack, Simeon Boykov, who's in jail waiting charges for contempt sentencing. He's apparently pleaded guilty, and apparently he's been identified or declared a national security interest. What that means, I don't know. That's what his wife or lawyers have put on the internet, and that's apparently influenced his hearing, in that there's limited people who could actually attend it. It was almost a closed court, not quite, but very close to a closed court. Only a few people could enter. Apparently, I wasn't there, but that's what they're saying. And so Avi Yemini's relationship with Simeon Boykov could be a defence for PR Guy 17, saying, look, he's a threat to national security. He hangs around people like Simeon Boykov, Aussie Cossack. And what's even a big issue, as far as I can see, is that Avi Yemini or his employer, a Canadian company called Rebel News, haven't registered under the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme. So let's have a look at the legislation. Now, if you go to the website, the Attorney General Department's website, you'll see a page there, Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme. You can either search that website, or you can just do an internet search for Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme, and you'll come up with a key details. The page there, it outlines it fairly well. Now, what's a foreign political organisation? It's good to know this definition right off the start. Foreign political organisation is a foreign political party or a foreign organisation that exists primarily to pursue political objectives. Now that's Rebel News. That can't be in doubt. Anyone who has spends any time looking at Avi Yemini's YouTube channel, he's definitely there to influence Australian politics. And I'll read you a quote that someone has put on the video that I just uploaded about Avi Yemini, one of his supporters obviously, and it says, Avi fighting the lockdowns, mandates, police brutality and Dan here in Victoria is a badge of honour. The mainstream media ignore everything. Well, that's one of his supporters saying that Avi fights the lockdowns, the mandates, police brutality and Dan, which is a Victorian Premier, Dan Andrews. So he's definitely there to have a political influence in Australia, Avi Yemini, and he's doing it on the payroll of a foreign company, and that's their main objective, to have an influence on politics in this country. Now, if you have a look at the Attorney General's website under the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme, it'll come up with a page. What is the difference between foreign influence and foreign interference? Foreign influence, nothing illegal about that. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But foreign influence, when it's coercive, intended to affect an Australian political or government process that are directed, subsidised, undertaken on behalf of foreign actors. Now, Avi Yemini has been doing exactly that over the last couple of years. He's been trying to influence the government in relation to COVID, in relation to other laws, processes and procedures, and he hasn't denied that. That's what he's trying to do. Now, another page there at persons who are liable undertakes an activity on behalf of a foreign principal. Well, that's what Avi Yemini is doing. He's been paid by Rebel News. Now another page, it comes up registrable activities. Okay, what's the activities that these foreign actors may or may not be doing? Number 3 is communications activity in Australia for the purpose of political or government influence. Well, that's what Avi Yemini does on a day-to-day basis. Now another page, well, failing to register is a criminal offence. Part 5, enforcement. It is a criminal offence for a person who is liable to register not to be registered under the scheme. And if you scroll down, it'll come up with penalty imprisonment for 5 years. Well, it'll be up to 5 years. That's what it should be. You'll see people on their register. You can scroll, or you can do search of the database as who's registered. And you'll find people like Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull. Here's a page from Kevin Rudd's listing, where he's, declared, interviews with China Media Group, Korean Broadcasting, TV Ontario, which would be Canada. So Kevin Rudd has listed those interviews and that with these foreign media. So should Avi Yemini, because Avi Yemini doesn't try and hide the fact that he's trying to influence Australian politics. You'll see pictures with him, with Craig Kelly, the leader of the Clive Palmer's Australia First Party. Well, Craig Kelly's not really a leader at all, he's just a puppet for Clive Palmer. But you'll see Avi Yemini on the Andrew Bolt show, etc., trying to influence Australian politics. Now the main purpose of this video isn't 100% to make out the case against Avi Yemini for breaching the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme, although I believe I've made out a very powerful prima facie case. The point here is to show that Avi Yemini has no defamation case against PR Guy 17 whatsoever, because PR Guy 17 can argue, look, Avi Yemini is good friends with someone like Aussie Cossack, Simeon Boykov, who's been declared a public interest for foreign influence. And Avi Yemini has breached Australian law by failing to register for the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme, which shows he is arguably a threat to national interest. So that leaves Avi Yemini with no court case against PR Guy 17. He's not going to be able to win his defamation case by saying he was called a criminal, which is untrue, because it is true. He's been convicted of assaulting his wife, which he pleaded guilty. And to say he's been defamed by being called a threat to national security is not going to hold up either, given who he associates with and the fact that he's failed to declare that interest when he's meant to. So that means the defamation case is just a sham designed for one purpose only, and that is to determine who, or we'll find out who is a PR Guy 17. And that means it's politics. That's all, pure politics. Once again, that says Avi Yemini should have registered for the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme. So that in itself puts him in breach of the scheme. The fact that he's instituted defamation proceedings for political purposes. That shows he's in Australia for politics, not for media. Now for this video I've gotten a fair bit of help from Mate on Twitter, who goes by the handle @SUXHypocrisy. What that means I don't know, but they have a Twitter account, and if you find their Twitter account you'll see they have a Buy Me a Coffee link, which given that they've helped out with this video substantially, if you support a PR Guy 17 or you support shining a light on corruption in the media, make sure you give them a tip, buy them a coffee or two. Other than that, if you visit my website you'll be able to see the article I published a couple of days ago about Avi Yemini suing PR Guy 17, and that focuses on the claim that Avi Yemini claims he was called a criminal, which he says defamed him, which it doesn't. And in this video we made out the case that PR Guy calling Avi Yemini a threat to national security doesn't hold up, because he can run the truth defence, or at least try to. Whether he succeeds or not is another story, but I believe he's got a very powerful case to run that defence. Other than that, please share this video on Twitter, Facebook, etc. and please subscribe to this video as well. Thank you for your time and have a good day.